everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Vanessa. I am a fantasy, paranormal, and horror writer, book publisher, editor, diversity reader, all the different hats. So today, I am doing a live stream discussion with author Holly Davis, and we are going to be talking about the movie Barbarian, the horror movie Barbarian. So I will let Holly go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm author Holly Davis. You can find me as Right Holly Davis across the interwebs. Even though I am a young adult fantasy writer, I love reading like horror, mystery thrillers. And ever since I was little, I loved watching like horror and scary movies. So was really glad that Vanessa mentioned Barbarian and that I was able to watch it because I really enjoyed it and I'm excited to talk about it. And because I've like watched them for so long, I have found out the type of movies that I like. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Nice. So just to give you guys a quick background and synopsis of the movie. So Barbarian is a 2022 American horror thriller film written and directed by Zach Krieger in his solo screen writing and directional debut. It is produced by Aaron Milkman, not sure if I said that right, Roy Lee, Raphael Margules, and J.D. Leifshitz. The film stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long. The plot sees a woman find out that the rental home she reserved at an Airbnb has been accidentally double booked by a man not knowing of a dark secret within the dwelling. So this this movie just really surprised me. So I actually watched it I watched it in October when I was doing a October horror movie watch challenge, and I don't remember what challenge I had put for Barbarian, but it ended up being a favorite. And I'm trying to think what was it. Yeah, I don't remember. But it ended up instantly becoming a new favorite horror movie of mine. And so I was like, I really want to talk about it, especially because after I watched it, of course, I went online to see the reviews and what other people were saying about it as well. And I came across some comments that made me look at the movie from another perspective, which just made me appreciate and love it even more. I was like, oh yeah, that's actually brilliant. So I really wanted to talk about it, and yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing here. So I'll let Holly share her overall thoughts and opinion on the movie.
Yeah, first off, I want to know what that like movie challenge is or whatever. Send that to me. Because that sounds good. I didn't watch as many scary movies in October as I wanted to, so I'm really glad that I could watch it. So like I said, like I've watched a lot of scary movies since I was a kid, and it was maybe like 6 years ago. I had a patient of mine who we were talking about like scary movies, and she gave me this huge list of like all of these like horror movies to watch, and I realized ones that I liked a lot were ones where, like, there was a reason why something was happening. The ones I didn't like was where, like, people were being tortured for, like, no reason, and it was just, like, torture for torture's sake. So I think that's why I, enjoyed Barbarian overall because, like, there was, like, a reason behind it, and it was really deep with, like, the layers of, like, why everything was happening, but definitely, I mean, I loved it because it, like, flipped things on its head for me, like, I wasn't expecting anything, and the way the movie started completely, like, subverted my expectations of how it was going to go because I went in blind, like, I didn't know anything about, Barbarian, I just heard it was good, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch it." I just bought it that day, and, um, so I was really going in, like, not knowing much, but I think that made it, like, really exciting that description, the summary that you said with, like, "Oh, but there's, like, a 3rd secret or a 3rd entity type thing," like, that was what I completely didn't expect, which was Barbarian, but but yeah, it was one that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Um, this movie subverts your expectations in a few different ways, which we'll get into. Um, but so the October horror movie challenge I did. So this was for day 3, which was watch a comfort horror movie, which I did not know what comfort horror movie meant, and so
And what does that mean, a comfort horror mo I wanna know what that means.
I had to look it up, and it's kind of different for everyone. I think it's just like I guess um, whatever horror movie is like your go-to, your comfort that you can watch again and again. And so yeah, I I had another movie planned for that day. I forget what movie I was going to do that day, but I really wanted to watch Barbarian first. And so I did, and I didn't get around to watching the other movie. But I was like, this works because I think this will be a new comfort horror. I could find myself watching it again and again. Um, but let's see. So I guess there's so much to get into with this movie because there's so many layers. Which I will say right now, if you haven't seen the movie yet, this is your spoiler warning right now. We are gonna get into all the spoilers, everything that happens, all the twists and turns, the ending. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, click off now, go watch it, and then come back and chat with us in the comments. Um, so I guess I will start with. So you said you went into this not knowing anything at all, which I think is the best way to go into it. Really, I went into it knowing a little bit, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting. Like you said, it subverts your expectations in so many ways. But I had seen a clip of an interview with the director, which is what made me want to. I already had Barbarian on my watch list, but it made me push it up higher on the watch list because of the interview I saw where he's talking about how he got the idea for the movie and how it was like he was reading the book The Gift of Fear, and it talked about all these little red flags or things that guys will do that you know will be a red flag or signal for women that this could be a dangerous situation. And so he talked about how he was so unaware and oblivious to all the little things that you could do that would signal these red flags. And so he wanted to do a writing exercise. This was meant to just be a writing exercise that no one else would see, no one else would know, and ended up becoming a movie. But it started out as a writing exercise where he started with the scene and wanted to see, how many of those red flags can he put into that scene, into that movie, um, and still have the main character kind of like go against her instincts and like kind of ignore, those red flags because one thing is, women have been taught a lot to ignore some of those instinctual red flags that come up or to kind of excuse them in a way. And so that's how the idea for it started off. So that's the interview I saw. And so when I went into the movie, when I started it, I was already going into it thinking, okay, so this is going to be a situation where something terrible is going to happen. And of course, we open up the movie and we see Tess, uh, you know, can't get into her Airbnb, and then we see uh, I forget his character's name now.
Keith.
Keith, yes. We see Keith open the door, and they're like, it's kind of weird at first, and then they realize they've been double booked, and so Keith was like, well, come on in, let's see if we can figure this out. And when he offers to let her stay the night because there's a conference in town, all the hotels were booked, which is another thing I'm gonna come back to remind you of that. But so he ends up offering to share the rental, the Airbnb, with her for the night. And surprisingly, she agrees. And so, just from that beginning, going into it, I was like, no, you need to get out of there. Don't agree to stay. Because I kept thinking, okay, he seems nice, and even though he's doing all these little things that would be a red flag, again, this is probably part of that conditioning that society has in women, because I kind of excused all those as like, well, not completely. Part of me excused all those red flags as he's just an awkward guy that doesn't know what he's doing and he's fumbling around trying to make things okay, but he's got no clue how to deal with the situation. And so I just wrote it off as him being awkward, but um, relatively okay guy. Um, so part of me was saying that. The other part of me, because I went into the movie with that interview in mind, this is where I'm like, if I did not go into it seeing that interview and I didn't know anything, I would just play it off as like, he's the awkward guy trying to make light or make good of an awkward situation and not knowing how to do it. But since I knew at the interview, had in the back of my mind he was going to do something. He was going to turn out to be some creepy, you know, creepy murderer, rapist, whatever guy, and he was going to do something horrible to her. Um, but that quickly, quickly becomes, you quickly realize that's not the case as you go further and further into the movie, and you realize, oh, he really was just a bumbling doofus. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my mindset going into it, and like I said, it subverted what I thought, because I thought he was going to have something to do with it, and he has nothing at all to do with what happened.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering, uh, did you have that thought or impulse either of like he is going to be this bad, the big bad in the movie?
Yes, yes, I did. I thought he was the barbarian. And he was awkward, but like especially like the actor Skarsgård, like with his kind of buggy eyes, like he's like, oh, he's nice, but he also could be kind of a serial killer, like he could own this Airbnb. Like I was like coming up with my own things like in my head, like, oh, he could own this Airbnb and he's the one who accidentally double books it with the person if it's a woman. And especially seeing what Tess found in the basement. I was just like, oh my God, he was setting her up this whole time. And he like tried to be nice with like, oh, I didn't want to open the wine until you got here, so you saw me open it. And some people might be like, oh, that's sweet, but for women, yeah, like, and realizing that that's what he based the book off of, like I was like, you are just very awkward, and which means like you haven't gotten enough social interaction, so you're like homebody serial killer, so like and just those little seeds that were planted, like the door was open but he was having like, it's like he was having that nightmare, but maybe he had slept walk, and like, it was just like all of these just weird things. And like you said, like the coincidences of like, oh, there's this conference, all the hotel rooms are booked, it's a dark and stormy night. And um it was just, and then he's like, let me bring in your luggage. And so it just seemed, for me, I would have been very skeptical. And then, oh no, I'll sleep on the couch. Like just everything I did not take as like this nice guy at all. So then when it turned out that he was nice, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he was nice. Cause like when Tess was going back for, I'm like, what are you doing? Like at first when she opened up the door and she peered in and she's like, nope, nope. And she just backed up. I was like, oh my God, I love that. She's not like the stupid person, like, oh, what is this dark and scary place? Let me go in it.
Mm.
But like the only reason she went in there was because of him.
Well,
Um,
not completely, because when it first opens up, she's like, "Nope," and I was like, "Good girl." And then 2 seconds later, she's like trying to see what's in, and actually ends up walking into the room. And I'm like,
yeah,
"What are you doing?
I
You
know. I was
know."
You were smart. um, but then too, like when they had a lot in common and they were like getting along really well,
Mhm,
that was like suspicious for me too, because I was like, this is going too well. This is
mhm,
going too well. But I
mhm.
thought he was behind it all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought too. I was like, he's he seems nice, and I want to trust him. I feel like I want to trust him, but I don't think I should. And I think it's actually I know other people have talked about this and said it as well, but I think it was a great choice for them casting Bill Skarsgård as Keith, because
Absolutely.
um, if you know your horror and you're a horror fan, you know that Bill plays It in Stephen King's It, the clown.
That was him. Oh my god.
Yeah. So
That's why his creepy bug eyes looked so familiar.
yeah. So and it's especially funny when you have that scene where they're on the couch talking and they're talking about what she would have done if the roles were reversed and she had gotten there first. And
Mm.
and at one point Keith says, "What do you think I am, a monster?" And I just that was part of the humor in the movie that I there's a lot more humor in it, but that was one thing I just loved. Because knowing that he does play a monster in it, made that line even funnier. So um
Oh, that's awesome. I wish I knew that because I would have been like, well, and that was subverted too. Gosh.
mm, so I liked seeing how um I like that they had him in that role. Because it really does play up your expectations, especially if you know him as
Mm.
the actor from It. You're even more so expecting that he's going to be behind this and like he's gonna do something messed up to her. And so I like that they played around with that, but then went in a different direction. Um, Now, speaking of, I wanted to touch on before we get to one of the big main twists. I wanted to touch on all the little red flags in that scene that night, um, and just kind of talk about what, like, what some of those red flags were, and what, I guess, just like how we would have reacted to the situation with
Mhm.
all of those red flags.
Yeah.
Uh, so I know we mentioned the hotel. Um, uh, so when Tess enters the B&B, um, and they realize they've been double booked, she tries to find a hotel to stay at for the night. And so she calls one hotel. And then after that, she didn't find availability at that one. And then Keith says, "Oh, you know what? I just remembered. There's a medical intervention in town. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to find a room tonight." And I was like, and she just takes that and doesn't continue looking. And I'm like, no, I would have. There's got to be one room. There's oh, in the city. You're in the city. They were in Detroit, right? And so
Mhm. Yep.
you're you're in a major city. There's plenty of hotels around. Even if you have to drive to the next town,
Yep.
I would drive to the next town and stay at the hotel. Like you can't tell me
Yeah, that like I
finding
caught that too where I was like, "Well, she just tried one, and how do you know?" Like it was just, how do you know you're in town? You're staying at this Airbnb too. I don't know. It just was fishy.
Yeah, I was just like, at least try some others or try the town over. You can always drive over there. Or even, see, me, I don't know. Did she, I don't remember if it said, did she fly in or drive there um,
I
for the interview?
I
Because
think
I was
Drew
thinking, Drew drove.
Drew drove.
Well, no, because I was thinking if she had flown there, you know, I
Mm,
would have stayed at the airport. I'd rather stay at the airport
yeah,
and then a double book B&B. But yeah,
I'm trying to see. I don't think I see. anything about that. Yeah, like, and if that had been like a rental car or something.
Yeah. But all of these things, I'm like, could have slept at the airport. People do that. Could have kept looking for a hotel room. I'm sure you would have found one eventually. It's just you by yourself. You only need one small room.
Right.
Um, let's see. Some other red flags that Keith had was like uh, crossing the boundaries, right? With he offered her tea, she said no, but he made her tea anyway. Um, she didn't want him to get her bags from the car, but he insisted. So, and he got her bags anyway. So it's just those, all of those little things adding up
Mhm.
of crossing the boundaries. Um, there was also uh, him complimenting her name. Um, and then what else is there?
And then even with the wine, it was like, oh, you want her to like lose her inhibitions, like get tipsy or drunk, like so this it doesn't seem like a uh innocent gesture.
And then also over explaining when when you got to the part with the wine,
Mhm.
he realized he started. That's when he started to realize, oh, she probably didn't drink the tea because, you know, of course she's not gonna trust me right now,
Mhm.
and she doesn't know if I put anything in it. So it'd be better to see like have her watch me pour it or whatever. Um, and so, he goes into over explaining about that, and that's why he waited for her to open the wine and stuff. Um, so yeah, all of those little things um, would add up. But of course, in this case, it didn't add up to what we thought it would. So I guess let's go into what happened then. What did happen? Um, so after the interview, she's headed back to the Airbnb, which is another mistake. I was like, why? Like, I would have had my stuff, my luggage and stuff in the car so
Right.
that in the morning, you know, I'm after the interview, I'm glad I don't need to go back to the
Right. More of
Airbnb.
just like, okay, this is just for convenience. I'm staying here this one night and then I'm gonna find another place. Like,
Yeah.
especially with the interviewer like warning her, like, oh my gosh, you're going to that neighborhood.
Mhm.
Like, you should stay away from there. Like, she was warned too.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so definitely I would have had my stuff and not even gone back after I left in the morning. But she does go back, and when she gets there, that's when we see the homeless guy
Mhm.
running towards her and trying to. We know now he was trying to warn her not to go into that house. Uh, Understandably, she didn't understand what he was trying to communicate, and so she got freaked out by him running towards her and yelling at her, and so she makes a beeline for the um, for the house, which is again all these little weird dumb decisions. Because I'm like, you're closer to your car, you could have jumped back in your car and drove off, but
Right.
she goes back into the house, and then she ends up being stuck there until so she calls the police, and the police basically are no help. they're like, sorry, we got no one to send for you.
Mhm.
Um, which is another thing that I'm like, okay, so no one really comes to that neighborhood.
No.
If not even the police will show up. And so she is kind of waiting to see if the homeless guy will leave um, before she goes. But in the meantime, she ends up going downstairs for like toilet paper for the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then that's when she gets locked in until Keith comes in. That's when she gets locked in. She finds the room, and Keith comes, shows up, lets her out, and she tells him what she found. Of course, he doesn't believe her, and he's like, "It's a room with the bed and a bucket." Sounds like okay, a basement with extra storage or something. So he doesn't believe her. He wants to go down and check it out for himself. Um, and oh, I should say the in the beginning when the first night when Tess is having the conversation with Keith, did you catch what the lesson was that um, they were talking about it in that conversation on the couch? Um,
Oh, I don't think I remember that specific conversation.
yeah, well, it made me think of Save the Cat. Um, Save the Cat writes a novel, and the what's the beat? The
I have it right by me. Right.
Okay, you pull it. It's in the beginning, the one where there's like where a character reveals the lesson the main character has to
Oh, the
learn.
theme stated?
The theme stated, yes.
Mhm.
So obviously recognized that beat in that conversation in the beginning because they're talking about how Tess was in an abusive relationship before, um, and how she's like, you know, she kept saying how like maybe the lesson I need to learn is to not go back or something like that. She says she keeps going back. She doesn't know why, but she keeps going back. And maybe that's what she needs to learn is to not go back. And I was like,
Mhm.
yep, bing, bing, bing. That is your lesson. And of course, it's going to take the whole entire movie for her to finally learn that lesson because she keeps going back. Um,
Wow, that was good that you caught that, that you picked up on that.
well, because they were talking about a couple different lessons or things that they should learn in the beginning, and it
Mm.
was like maybe it was something about relationship. I don't remember the other stuff they were saying, but that one stuck out to me because, um, throughout the movie, I was thinking, stop going back. What are you doing? Don't that. Yep, that's our lesson. So she goes back. She went back to the house after the interview, and when Keith comes and lets her out of the basement, and he decides to go down there and check it out, he convinces her to stay, she can stay upstairs, but just stay for a moment in case he gets locked down there too. And so he goes down there, makes his way, and then she's like, Keith, do you see it? He's like, yeah. And then after that, he goes quiet and she doesn't hear anymore. And she's like, Keith, okay, you can come up now. Let's go, let's go. She doesn't hear anything. He's quiet. And so she goes back down again and goes into the room again, and then realizes there's another door that leads further down that basement tunnel they were in, and she continues to go down that as well. Um, and it's like you're thinking in your head, stop, what are you doing? That is the moment where you're like, okay, if you're hurt, I'll call the cops. Hopefully they'll come for you. I'll tell them you're a white guy, so maybe they'll actually show up. So that's
Yeah, I was just surprised. I was like, "You are safe right now. Like, you got out of there, and now you're going through a different door and going deep, and like, you like for this guy that like, I at that time I still didn't trust, and I'm like, he's just leading you deeper so that then he can catch you and do all the things that he was doing in that room, like,
yep,
so
yeah, and that's the thing. And like she kept going back for these guys that she just met, like you just met him
mhm.
last night. You had one conversation. How good of a conversation did you have that you're willing to risk your life for this guy? But no.
Mm-mm.
Uh,
Nuh-uh.
Tess and Tess is she's kind and empathetic to where she wants to help others, but that is also kind of um her the downside for her, because
Mm,
she will try to help others to the cost of herself. And we
yep.
see that later on, after she's been stuck down there for a while, and then I'm forgetting everyone's name. The character that plays Justin. Uh,
That was AJ. Yeah, I
yeah.
had to look that up because I didn't remember his name either.
So AJ, when he finally arrives at the B&B, and then he ends up in the basement and finds Tess, and then just her. So Tess escapes right after AJ gets taken by the mother,
Mhm.
and so she's able to escape. But yet again, here's a guy you just met, you don't know at all, and you're like, I have to go back and help him. Like, why? I
Why?
mean,
And she doesn't even know, like, I mean, the allegations against him, like, is this even a good person? Like,
right.
and I think, like, that, like, really threw me off when they showed him, like, driving in the car, and I'm like, "Where is this going? Like, where's his piece in the
Mhm.
puzzle, like, his place in all of this?" So, that was, like, so cool to see unfold too, like, "Oh, he's the owner," and, like, so I loved that.
Yeah. I actually want to talk about that too. I'm jumping all over the place here. And this is what happens when I don't have well notes down. Um, but I wanted to talk about that scene as well, because that comes right after um, Tess and Keith are in the basement, and Mother shows up and bashes Keith's skull against the wall, and that's when we all realize, oh, so he was innocent. Oops, sorry. But that that is when we see Mother for the first time, and she just is screaming, and Tess is staring in shock and fear. And then the scene cuts to black, and it cuts to black for a couple seconds, and at first I was like, it's it can't be. That's not it, right? You can just finish like that. It's not over, right? And then you have the next scene of this. It's sunny and bright outside, and AJ is in his convertible driving um, on the side of the mountain or whatever, and music playing in the background and stuff. And so it's that juxtaposition that this movie does so well, going from something so uh, dark and tense, and right in the next scene, it's like bright and cheery, and it does that twice in the movie. And I thought it was interesting how uh, just how those scenes played side by side. Because you would think, like you said, like we see that scene and we're like, okay, where is this going?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Um, and same thing like you, I was thinking, what is going on? What are we switching to something else now? What is
I
going
feel
on? Um, and then, but then as he was on the phone talking, I was thinking, okay, so he's probably going to go stay at the Airbnb. They're probably introducing the next person to go stay at the Airbnb. And then we find out that he owns it and,
mhm.
has to sell, liquidate his assets
Mhm.
because of the allegations against him.
Mhm.
And so we find out that he is pretty shitty guy. And
Yeah.
so who doesn't understand what no is, or consent, or coercion,
Mhm.
uh, that is AJ all wrapped up in law. And so, um, yeah, which makes, I don't know, for me, it made it that much more frustrating seeing her go back to try to save him.
Mhm.
Um, which I know, obviously, we know, the audience knows that he's a crappy guy, but Tess doesn't know that. So she just sees someone who is innocent, who got stuck in this situation that she found herself in. And so she is wanting to help and try to save him. Um, which goes to show, the type of person and character that Tess is. Um, but I don't think many of us would do the same. At least not me. I'd be
No.
like,
Not when,
sorry.
like, I feel like my life's on the line or in danger, especially, like, seeing, like, because that happened to Keith, like, right in front of her face, you know?
Mhm.
Um, but I think what I'm wondering is, like, does Mother know, like, is it just, like, any guy, like, whether they're good or bad, she's kind of, like, against? Because I mean, she did throw AJ into or no, he fell into the did he
And
fall?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess he fell in there, and then she's like, "Well, okay, maybe I'll make you my baby," instead of, like, killing him. Um, but it seemed like she did want to protect Tess,
Mhm.
so I think it was just because he was a man, and it was just, like, she just saw, like, all men as evil.
Mm, that's interesting. Um, that's an interesting take. I um, I actually saw it more so that she um, she would have had she would have tried to make anyone her baby, her children,
Mm,
man or woman, but Tess had figured out that she only gets angry and testy when you're upset, or when her baby is upset. So if
Got
the
it.
baby stays calm and is fine, she'll be calm and fine. If
Mm,
the baby starts acting up, getting testy, angry, trying to do things, that's when she becomes violent and angry.
that
Um,
makes sense.
so, because yeah, she tried when AJ fell in the hole, she tried to give him the bottle, feed him the bottle, and when he wouldn't drink from the bottle, this was,
Mm,
we kind of see that she figures he's just being a testy baby, so she takes him to like breastfeed him,
mhm.
uh, which would be way scarier than the bottle. But
Yes, that was a scary scene in and of itself.
yeah, um, so yeah, I think she sees um, anyone who's in the house as
Mm,
her baby, as her children,
mm,
until they do something to like upset her or do something to harm her other children, her other
mm.
baby.
Got it.
Because I think like the reason she bashed in AJ's skull against the wall was I think she thought he was hurting Tess.
Mm,
So she sees Tess as her baby as well. And she's like, well, I'm not going to let you hurt my other one. So, and then the same thing for at the end when AJ throws her off the tower, when he's like, come and get your baby, and throws her off. And she jumps and catches her.
mhm.
But then when AJ comes down um, and sees that Tess is still alive, then the mom comes up and like basically kills AJ. It's like you tried to hurt my baby as well, so so I think I think she saw Tess as her main baby,
Got it.
maybe because um, Tess was a girl, and so she relates to that, and so I think she saw her as the main baby, and like while she will try to take care of the other babies, if they do anything to harm the main one, she's gonna take them out.
Got it. Yeah, that makes more sense. And it seemed like Tess was complying with everything that she wanted that
Hmm.
mother wanted her to do, so she was like saw her as more precious.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I think also that also goes to talking about I think kind of the difference between men and women in situations like this, whereas like women will, you know, we will adapt to whatever we need to do to survive.
Mm,
So we saw Tess adapt to her situation being trapped down there. She, adapt to pretending to be the baby and drinking from the bottle and, doing whatever the mother wants because, that's her means of survival,
mhm.
um, is to adapt and play the role that she is in at the time. Um, whereas, you know, generally speaking, I know I'm not, you can't classify every guy or everyone because no one's a monolith. I know I say that all the time. But generally speaking, I don't think most guys would adapt to the situation in that sense. I think they would more likely try to use brute force or their intellect to fight back and try to get out of the situation. But I don't think most of them would like play into the role in order to be safe, which I think goes to if we're going back to the conversation of rape and sexual assault, which trigger warning right now for anyone who needs those trigger warnings. Um, we're gonna get into talking about rape and sexual assault a bit. So when AJ is accused, um, and then he goes to the club later on with the friend, and the friend is like, "Okay, just tell me straight out what happened. Did did she say no? Like what happened?" And he was like, "Well, yeah, she said no at first, but I convinced her. It just took a little convincing." Just for anyone who's not aware, that is not consent. That is still sexual assault and coercion, not consent. And I bring that up because, again, like I was saying before, with the fact that as women will adapt to whatever the situation is in order to survive. So, of course, in AJ's situation with the actress, um, she, I'm sure, was adapting and like, okay, I said no, he didn't listen, he's not respecting that. I don't want him to get violent. I don't want this to escalate and get worse to where, he seriously hurts me or I die or whatever. So I'm just going to um, give in. I'm going to placate and say yes and go with it because I don't want something worse to happen. And so,
And she was the actress too. Like maybe she didn't want to like lose her role, you know?
mhm. And so, so that's where I type back into that to say, I think we more likely are to adapt and play into whatever role we're put in any given situation. Whereas I think guys will more likely try to fight against it.
Mm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I so wanted him to be like good. And then when he had that conversation, I was like, oh no, you are a scumbag. Okay. Um, so it was like the one, I think because Keith was good and that happened to him. And then it was like, then I went in to AJ's situation, giving him the benefit of the doubt
Mm,
until then he proved himself guilty. So that
mm.
was kind of interesting that through Keith, I kind of went in to AJ without, without like suspecting him at first.
That is interesting, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think some people would probably do the same, go into that, giving him the benefit of the doubt. I actually did not give him the benefit of the doubt. I thought he was likely trash from the beginning when we found out the accusation. And I only say that because of the fact that he's an actor in Hollywood, and we know how things in Hollywood go,
Mm-hmm.
and how people abuse their power, and just all the things you get away with because of status, fame, and money. So I definitely did think he was guilty of what he was being accused of because of that. Um, but yeah, that also goes to show just like, how um, how what we see, um, whether in the media or in our actual lives, what we see play out, how that shapes and views how we view certain people and how we have interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's another interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I feel like the story really brought up these, like, because you can look at someone and not really know their true intentions, and even with their actions, like, you're not sure, like, when they started to have those flashbacks with Frank, how casual, he was, whistling or whatever, just doing everything like it was no big deal, going into the home and acting like this maintenance worker, and, um, acting cordial and nice. And so it was just like, I think that's why it's so hard for women. And that's why we were so suspicious of Keith, because it's just like, well, our initial reaction is to just like not trust you. But then, you know, we don't know if you're a good person or not, because your good actions could be fake. So I think it's hard to know, yeah, the intentions behind it.
yeah. Um, and I'd rather err on the side of caution and just not trust. Um,
Yeah, same.
but I was gonna say, yeah. So I do want to get into Frank, the actual monster, as the homeless guy pointed out. Um, she she being the mother wasn't even the worst thing in there. So obviously alluding to Frank, which is that second scene where we see something intense happen with Tess. Um, well, after AJ falls in the hole, and we see Tess and AJ there, and we find, you know, she's still alive after all this time.
Yeah.
Um, she's okay. And then it goes from that scene to a bright, shiny day with the house before the neighborhood got destroyed and torn apart. But you see the house, the sparkling green lawn, every
Mhm.
house in the neighborhood is looking nice, and we see Frank, the actual monster, come out and like just go about his day to day stuff, going to the store, picking up stuff for preparing for a baby. Um, so we obviously know he had at least one woman already down there pregnant, and then we see his ruse of how he gets these women, how pretending to be what was it, electrician or
I
plumber or
I
something,
think so, yes. Mhm.
to go into the house and like leave a back window, a bathroom window open so he can come back in later.
Mhm.
Um, and so we kind of get those glimpses and flashbacks of like very much the what's the phrase I'm looking for? I can't think of it now. But very much, the monster in plain sight. So the one that,
Mm.
whenever you hear about serial killers and stuff, and you sometimes hear from people that know them, and they're like, well, they seem like such a nice guy, or
Oh, I hate that.
well,
Oh.
they were so quiet, they kept to themselves, and it's like, yeah, they're quiet,
Oh.
keeping to themselves for a reason.
Yeah, I hate when they say that, "Oh, I never would have thought." And it's like, yeah, they're not, like, waving their hands, "Hey, I'm doing things I'm not supposed to," you
Right,
know, like.
right. So it plays on to that fact of, it's never it's never who you uh, suspect or expect. that is behind, doing all these things. It's always like, the ones that are charming and seem nice and wonderful and um, have everything together, but holding
Mhm.
a dark secret, which is which I thought that scene was also interesting, considering the fact that um, his neighbor in that scene said they were selling their home, and because they think the value is gonna go down, and like they
Mm.
need to get out now because the neighborhood is gonna start going to shit. Um, and that was actually that at that time in Detroit. That was, I believe, someone said that was the time when uh, they started letting Black people move into the neighborhood.
Mm.
And so it's that assumption of like, oh, the neighborhood's gonna get worse, crime is gonna start rising, all
Hmm.
these things, it's gonna get dangerous because Black folks are moving into the neighborhood. When really the most dangerous person in the neighborhood was already living there among them this whole time.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah,
um,
I love like that, like who the monster ended up being, who the, barbarian was, like wasn't who we thought at all. Like, and realizing he was still there, like up until the end, was even more crazy. Cause like that was the one thing for me, was like not knowing like the timeline of things, like, and he was still alive. So that made it even more horrific because of how long and how many people he had been doing this to.
mhm. Yeah, we see the tapes when AJ finds them down there and sees all the tapes. And I think you get a glimpse of like, AJ is a mild, safe, if you can use the word safe, relatively safe version of
Mhm.
Frank.
Yep.
So we kind of see, and interesting enough, we kind of see the with all three of them, Keith, AJ, and Frank.
Mm.
Um, we kind of see a spectrum of all these different guys,
Yeah.
um, but all of them, you know, obviously Frank more so than anyone else, but all of them had those um, those red flags about them that would make you go, wait, this probably isn't a safe person to be around. Uh,
Right.
so yeah, it was interesting how he did that. Um, even with Keith, who we thought was really nice, and turned out just to be an awkward person. But just seeing how what am I trying to say? I lost my train of thought there.
It's okay.
All right, but did you have any other parts you wanted to point out before we get to kind of the end? Because I do want to touch on the very very end with Tess and the mother.
Yeah, I think the end part was what I was, yeah, interested in talking about.
Anyway, yeah. So the end part we see finally um, after the mother jumps off the tower to save Tess, and she kills Keith, and she tries to um, kind of caress Tess and be like, baby, baby, and like wanting to bring her back with her. And obviously Tess is injured and hurt, and so
Mhm.
she couldn't. get up and leave when the mother was trying to get her up, and she just like gets the gun and ends up shooting the mom. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to talk about that because like I said, the more I think about the movie and reflect on it, the more I see different layers and nuances with, especially with that end scene.
Mm.
So I wanted to first get your thoughts on it and what did you think?
Yeah, I was glad that like AJ got his retribution in the end, and kind of got what he deserved. Um, it was like I didn't like guess that Tess would be the one to kill Mother. Um, but I think it was one that like Mother wanted to just kind of like I don't know, came to this realization of like I need to be put out of my misery. Um and this isn't yeah, I felt like there was some like sentience there. Um but I I'm just glad that Tess did survive because then she was able to go back to the theme stated, have changed, have all of this have come to have happened for a reason for her to then hopefully change how she's she's not going to always go back. Um but yeah, so I was satisfied with the ending.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I like the ending as well. I know I've seen some people say they didn't like the ending.
Oh, I
But yeah, I did too. I liked the ending. I'm glad Keith got what he deserved. Um, and then I so like you said, going back to with the end with Tess shooting the mom, takes it back to the opening theme stated of I can't go back. Uh,
mm,
and so that is the moment I think she finally learns that lesson of like, um, and someone I saw a comment online say, and this is what made me look at the movie again through another lens. It's like when you look at it from a domestic violence situation, um, where Tess is escaping this abusive relationship, abusive situation. And, a lot of times people do go back to that situation because that's all they know. But finally, in the end, it's showing the determination to choose themselves and, say, I cannot go back because if I go back, I might actually die this time. I don't know what's going to happen, and I very well could die. So finally, um, choosing herself and putting her needs first, for once, in saying that no, I'm not going back. So I thought the ending was powerful for that reason, but then there was another thing I noticed at the end
mm,
because I feel like at this point a lot of us have come to um, sympathize for the mother and like her situation
yes.
because um she didn't, it's not something she asked for or wanted or deserved or whatever. She was unfortunately born into the situation of
Mhm,
an abusive cycle and not um, not having any interactions with anyone except for I'm thinking the women he kept down there and himself. And
Yeah.
so her not interacting with anyone, not having any language even to speak, other than a few words, we kind of see that she. It's not that she is a monster or that she is a violent bad person. It's just she doesn't know any other way to be. This
Mm.
she kind of um, learned what she could with the best that she had.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure she saw a lot of violence from Frank towards the women. And so she is pretty much a product of her environment. And so I think a lot of people, myself included, um, got to the end and kind of felt bad for the mother. And like as much as I knew she needed to die, you also feel bad that she has to die.
Yeah.
And I think what I was thinking it brought up for me was the the relationship dynamic with the mother and Tess, and and also given the history of domestic violence and abuse that Tess has been a victim of before.
Mhm.
It just I kind of drew a parallel between uh, that phrase that a lot of I think I've seen a lot of booktubers use this phrase. I don't know so much anywhere else, but when they talk about problematic books and uh,
Mm.
or problematic things an author or celebrity has said or done, um, and wanted them to apologize for it, and as they say, what's it? Uh, intentions don't your intentions don't erase your
Mm.
impact, something along those lines. Um,
Oh.
where it's like your intentions don't erase your impact, or your impact doesn't negate your intentions don't negate your impact, something like that. I can't
Yeah. Like
remember
good
the
in
exact phrasing,
what
um, but it
your
just made
intention is irrelevant if your impact is harmful, or your good intent does not erase oppressive impact, something like that.
yeah, yeah, something along those lines.
Mm.
But that's what that end scene also made me think of,
Mm.
because obviously the mother's intentions for Tess is not to harm her; it's to care for her and take care of her as her baby. It's not
Yeah.
to harm her, but that doesn't erase the fact that her actions and the situation is harmful to Tess.
Mm.
Um, so that's another thing that it made me think about, um, that I kind of drew parallels to, is that phrase that people will say when someone messes up, and they say, oh, but they had good intentions. Well, that doesn't erase the impact that they had on the person.
Wow. I love that line. I feel like that's um powerful and something that should go around. Yeah, I like that. Um and I too was like sad. Like it was like I knew that that mother had to die, but I didn't want her to because I knew that like all of the things that had happened and how she became the way she wasn't her fault, you know? So,
Yeah, how was it? Yeah.
yeah.
Um, oh, One other thing I wanted to touch on, I forgot about till now, was what I wanted to get your thoughts on what like Tess kept trying to um, get help, or in the beginning when she was telling Keith about the basement and he didn't believe her, and then when she tries to go to the cops and they finally show up for one, but they don't believe her, and it refused to listen to her, and so
Yes.
kind of wanted to get your thoughts on like what she went through and like not having anyone listen to her or believe what's happening.
Yeah, like I saw, because that's kind of like with Andre, the homeless guy, like when he was running up to her, and so like because that neighborhood had been so like beautiful and thriving, and then just to see the deterioration of it, then it was just the cops like had their own opinion and like um just discriminated and against the people there, and was just like, oh, they're you're just on drugs and make spewing nonsense or whatever, and like not believing her because that's probably what maybe some other people, Andre or otherwise, like had said. But it doesn't mean that if you're from a a poor neighborhood, or one that's not like well built, that you're not telling the truth, or that you're not deserving of the cops help, because they they really just were brushing her off and like not seeing it as an emergency, like, oh, we don't have enough people to send. And it's like, so that really like got me upset. I was just so mad at them, and I'm like, you need your retribution too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that, and I was also going to add just the again. I think that also it also speaks to the gender roles and you know discrimination that um,
Mm,
women will face when it's it's much harder for I think it's much harder for people to listen to or believe women, um, especially depending on what role you're in and the power dynamics within it. Um, but it's you know I think it kind of speaks to how a lot of times women will say something and they'll be dismissed, or um, their claim and stuff will be dismissed,
yeah.
especially you know when going back to um, a sexual assault, especially when it comes to that. The whole reason, the Me Too movement took off so much is because you do have a lot of women who either don't speak up because they know they won't be believed or listened to, or
Hmm.
they do try to speak up and they're shown that they're not believed or listened to.
Yep.
Um, and so I think that's why that became such a powerful movement. And I think, um, that's kind of reiterated in the movie where we see Tess trying to speak out and use her voice to say, I need help. And she tells the police, I'm a woman that was held captive. I'm not an addict. I'm not on drugs or whatever. And they still would not listen to her and dismissed her, which also brings me into um, the discussion of intersectionality, um, because, you know, as you said, the way the neighborhood became, Tess being a black woman, I think that's even more of a
Mhm.
reason that they kind of saw her as, oh, she must be on something, and they didn't believe her. Whereas if it was a white woman that said, I was held captive, I need help, I think they would have taken that a bit more seriously.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. So she kind of had like more than one thing against her, and I don't know if like they knew that she had called before. And so then they're like, oh, yeah, we'll finally come out, or we finally have people, or let's just see what this crazy woman's talking about, or something. So,
Yeah. So, um, I think those were all the big major things I wanted to talk about. There's a lot with this movie, I know.
mhm.
Um, any final thoughts? I okay, so I'm thinking to end this on more of a more upbeat note.
Right.
What what was your favorite scene in the
Oh my gosh, that's hard. Yeah, I think just when she found out that there was the tunnel. I think just like realizing that there was more, and
movie?
it opening up like a whole new, like there was just more to it. So I felt like that was my favorite part because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting the one room to be it, and then that
Mm-hmm.
was it, and then it was like, oh, there's so much more. So I really think that I guess the introduction of Mother was like, yeah, the tunnels and Mother was just like, oh, okay, there's something else happening.
Um, I would say is mine is a more humorous, funny scene, but related to the tunnels and everything, is when AJ finds the room down there and he goes to the computer to search, like, how, like, can this be included in the sale? Like, can basement square footage? And he's like, oh, it can. And so he goes down there with the tape measure,
Yeah.
starts measuring the room,
Yeah.
completely oblivious to, anything that might have happened there. He's just like moving the bed and like measuring the room, and then he ends up seeing the door open and seeing the tunnels that go further, and he's like, oh yes, and he starts measuring that, and I'm just like, this guy is. He's an idiot, but it's such a funny scene that I'm just like,
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was that was just showing like, it showed his character, It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's AJ.
yeah.
Which I saw in one of the, I forget if it was on Wikipedia or one of the interviews, that Zach Kreger had originally wanted Zach Efron to play that character. But I'm glad that it was uh, Justin Long, because I felt like he was kind of like that, like, I don't know, his face was like, yeah, I could see you being the sleazeball, so um
He very much gives off that entitled, I was in a frat, always got my way,
that
and
privileged white
now,
guy. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, um, but yeah, I thought that was so funny that, you find a dungeon in the basement of your house, and your first thought is like, I can add this to the sale.
Yeah,
Uh,
how can I make money off of this?
yeah. So
Uh, but yeah, I've been telling people to watch it and saying like, yeah, telling people how good it is and leaving it at that so that they can find out all of these tidbits. And I mean, in even watching it, I was like, man, I need to watch it again to see, things that I missed.
I know. I finished watching it, and right after, uh, I didn't. I started watching it at like a time, not fully. I got like just to the part where I think they Tess goes down to the basement, um, and we get to Mother, but yeah, I already wanted to immediately rewatch it. Uh, that's why I say it's a new favorite for me and probably a new comfort horror.
Yes, yes. Now I understand comfort horror. But yeah, definitely a favorite of mine too.
Yeah. Well, um, that is pretty much it. That's all I think um, have. I mean, we can go on and on about this movie forever, but I won't. So if anyone watching live or during the replay has seen the movie, share your comments down below. I would love to hear what you thought about it. What if you were surprised at any of the twists and um, kind of what was your expectations and how did you um, think about the movie and the ending. What were your thoughts on how it ended? So leave that in the comments below. And trying to think. Oh, I did have one more announcement I wanted to make. So I have a band book club that I run monthly. Um, we were doing it locally in person in my town, but we have just last month we switched to uh, online virtual um,
Oh,
discussions. So we are having our November discussion actually tomorrow,
cool.
tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. And the book this month was The Hunger Games by Susan Collins.
Oh, wait, that's a banned book?
Yes, it is. I
Oh,
okay. Let me read the description
it's ridiculous.
for why this is a banned book. Because I mean, any
Ridiculous.
banned book is ridiculous. The reasoning for all of them are absolutely ridiculous.
No,
Um,
that's not okay.
but let me pull up this one. Um, because yeah. So we're gonna be talking about Hunger Games tomorrow. I picked Hunger
Oh, I
Games
want to watch
this
that.
month. One because of this movie that just came out, Songbirds, um, of Songbirds and
A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Yeah.
a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I wanted to reread the series before watching the new movie, and also read that one because I haven't read that one yet. Um, but then also because I was like, November is going to be a busy time, so I'm going to pick a book I've already read and know. I already know how to discuss. Um, so yeah. So the reason I was banned, let's see. Um, so it says The Hunger Games by Susan Clemens takes place in a future dystopia where the wealthy capital forces the formerly rebellious districts to send their children to fight in a high-tech arena. And it's a perennial item on the list of the year's most frequently banned and challenged books because of its violence and anti-authority messages. But in 2014, for some reason, Hunger Games is singled out for its religious viewpoint. What viewpoint is that? Well, someone says the word hell once in the book, and Katniss's mother is good at healing people with herbs. In previous years, one of the reasons for challenging Hunger Games was that it was occult or satanic. So,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
that
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess it's good to be on this list because it gives people more exposure. And
I mean, you would think, yes,
gosh.
in true in a sense, but also makes it harder for people
Yeah,
to access books like this. That
that's ridiculous. So ridiculous.
it is. The most ridiculous one I've we've done in the Bad Book Club is for the book Melissa. It was titled George, and then when it was republished and retitled, um, they titled it Melissa. But
Yeah.
it's about a trans little girl who just wants to play Charlotte in her school play of Charlotte's Web.
Oh.
It's such a cute, sweet kid story, which we read at the beginning of this year because we needed it after we read Out of Darkness, which was a heavy one.
Oh.
It's a good one, but that one was a heavy one. And
Mhm.
so we were like, we need something light now. So we
Yeah.
we read Melissa, um, but it's ridiculous because there's absolutely no reason for that book to be on a ban list other than the fact that it has a trans main character.
Wow.
So
Well, I'm glad you have this book club.
yeah. So so tomorrow 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time is when the book club will be. So if anyone's interested, join um, the Goodreads group. It right now it's just called Band Book Club. I am working on a better name, but for now it's just Band Book Club. Um, so yeah, join the group on Goodreads, and you will get a link tomorrow. I'll be sending it out again tomorrow morning um, for the Zoom link because that'll be on Zoom. So I'll send out that link on Goodreads to join. So
Cool.
yeah, that is it. I guess don't forget to follow Holly, you guys. Her channel is linked down below. So don't forget to follow her.
Yeah.
And keep an eye out for her new book, her debut book coming out
Thank
next
you.
year. Um, Diamond Tears, right?
A Diamond Bright and Broken. Yeah, formerly Diamond Tears.
A Diamond Bright and Broken. So yeah, that comes out March, right? Or
On April 2nd.
April.
Yes,
Yeah.
2024. Yes, I can't wait. It's crazy that I'm like, oh, it's almost going to be 2024, which means that my book will be out in a couple months. So,
So definitely um, follow Holly on her channel and be on the lookout for her book. And
yeah.
we will see you guys next time. Next week, actually, next Sunday, um, we'll have another movie discussion with Holly and with Teresa this time also. Um, and we'll be discussing The Blackening. So, can't wait for that.
Yeah, same.
All right. See you guys. Bye.